In a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio, the Reynolds family appeared to have it all: a loving couple, a bright young daughter, and a home filled with laughter and warmth. Mark Reynolds, a 42-year-old construction supervisor known for his charm and skill, was admired by neighbors for his reliable nature. His wife, Linda, at 39, was a devoted schoolteacher, beloved by her students and known for her kindness. She balanced her family life with community work, and together, they seemed the epitome of suburban happiness. Linda's 19-year-old daughter, Emily Carter, from a previous relationship, was an artistic soul with a passion for photography and music. She cherished both her mother and her stepfather, never suspecting the darkness lurking within their home. But beneath this picture-perfect exterior, there was a dangerous secret, festering in the heart of their family. While Mark presented himself as a reliable father figure, his feelings for his stepdaughter Emily began to twist in ways he couldn't control. Initially, he saw himself as a protector, but admiration grew into a disturbing fixation. Linda, occasionally sensing something amiss in Mark's demeanor, dismissed these moments as stress or work fatigue. Friends and neighbors noticed subtle shifts in Mark's behavior, like his absent stares or sudden irritability, but they brushed it off, believing it was just ordinary tension. Over time, Mark's obsession grew insidious, leading him down a path from which he would never return. Months passed with the tension in the Reynolds household simmering beneath the surface, as Mark's feelings for Emily transformed from a concealed fixation to an overpowering obsession. Mark's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He started finding excuses to isolate Emily, often lurking near her bedroom door, or engineering ways to keep Linda distracted so he could spend more time with Emily alone. Emily, who was growing wary of her stepfather's attention, became more withdrawn and uneasy in her own home, sensing an unspoken pressure but unable to pinpoint its exact nature. Linda, though worried by the growing tension and Emily's seeming discomfort, still didn't see the danger in full. She thought Mark's recent moodiness was due to the stress of work, dismissing her unease as simple anxiety. Friends and family were beginning to sense the strain, noting Mark's frequent irritability and Emily's increasing detachment. This delicate balance finally snapped one evening, when Mark's obsession overpowered any remnants of self-control. Feeling driven by an intense need to remove any barriers between himself and Emily, he began forming a plan. Mark convinced himself that removing Linda from the equation would finally bring him the closeness with Emily he had long fixated upon, no matter the cost. On a quiet fall evening, the Reynolds household seemed as ordinary as ever. The family gathered for dinner, where Linda and Emily shared stories, and Mark listened in tense silence, his mind elsewhere. Emily retreated to her room afterward to focus on her college assignments, while Linda settled down with a book. Mark, however, had reached his breaking point and could no longer keep his intentions in check. Determined to carry out his dark plan, he confronted Linda with a cold calculation, taking her by surprise in a brutal, shocking act. The house was suddenly engulfed in a horrifying silence. Mark quickly set to work, attempting to clean up the scene, fabricating an alibi, and rehearsing what he would say to anyone who asked about Linda's sudden disappearance. He buried his emotions, transforming from a husband and father figure into someone hiding a terrible secret. Mark believed he had thought through every detail, confident he would get away with his crime. However, he couldn't predict how deeply Linda's absence would be felt, or how quickly people would notice that something was amiss. In the days following Linda's sudden disappearance, friends and family grew increasingly alarmed. Linda, known for her reliability, had failed to attend a school function she'd been preparing for, which was deeply out of character. Her absence at work, lack of communication with colleagues, and Emily's own mounting distress over her mother's unreachability raised red flags, prompting several calls to the police to report her missing. Officers were soon assigned to investigate Linda's disappearance, with her husband, Mark, becoming their initial point of focus. At first, Mark tried to maintain his calm, giving vague answers and suggesting that Linda had left on her own accord due to stress. However, Detectives noticed signs of evasion and discomfort in his responses. As officers interviewed friends, family, and neighbors, an unsettling picture began to emerge. Witnesses recounted a recent shift in Mark's demeanor, mentioning his growing possessiveness and frequent arguments with Linda. His behavior, which had initially seemed like normal marital discord, now appeared suspicious under the lens of her absence. In a search of the Reynolds home, investigators found troubling evidence that escalated their concerns. Faint blood traces that matched Linda's DNA, signs of hastily cleaned areas, and disturbing search histories on Mark's devices, including inquiries about hiding evidence and erasing online histories. This evidence, coupled with inconsistencies in Mark's story, was damning. Under the pressure of questioning, his composed facade crumbled, and he ultimately confessed to Linda's murder. The arrest shocked everyone, leaving the community reeling as details of the crime surfaced, and Mark's obsession with Emily was hinted at in court documents, creating a storm of speculation and horror. The trial was a harrowing ordeal for Emily and those close to Linda. Prosecutors presented Mark as a man consumed by an insidious fixation on his stepdaughter, whose jealousy and need for control led him to murder his wife in cold blood. The prosecution's case was built on a meticulous assembly of evidence: forensic reports that linked Mark to the crime, expert testimonies on his controlling behavior, and a disturbing pattern of internet searches that highlighted his premeditation. They argued that Mark's obsessive thoughts had driven him to eliminate the person he saw as an obstacle, Linda. Witnesses, including Emily, testified about the escalating tension in the household and the shifts in Mark's personality. Neighbors spoke of overhearing frequent arguments, while co-workers of Linda's recounted her mentions of stress at home, subtly alluding to an undercurrent of fear. The defense attempted to argue that Mark was under severe psychological stress, framing his actions as impulsive rather than premeditated, but the evidence presented by the prosecution was too overwhelming to counter. The trial was emotionally exhausting for Emily, who faced the painful truth about her stepfather's motives and actions. Seeing him in the courtroom, hearing his defense, and reliving the events through testimonies and evidence took a toll on her. After weeks of intense deliberation, the jury found Mark guilty of first-degree murder. The judge, citing the chilling nature of the crime and Mark's lack of remorse, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The verdict brought a sense of closure, but the trauma lingered, leaving a heavy weight on Emily and the community. Following the trial and Mark's sentencing, the community was left to confront the profound shock and sorrow of Linda's death. Linda had been an integral part of the neighborhood and school district, beloved by colleagues, parents, and students alike. As news of her tragic murder spread, the community found itself in collective mourning. Vigils were held outside the school where Linda had taught, with students, parents, and staff gathering to pay tribute. Candles, handwritten notes, and flowers were laid beneath a large portrait of Linda, transforming the school's entrance into a memorial that spoke to her deep impact on those around her. For Emily, this was a difficult but meaningful show of support. Attending these events, she found herself surrounded by people whose lives her mother had touched, hearing stories of her kindness, dedication, and the many ways she had made others feel seen and valued. Friends of Linda spoke about her warm personality, her dedication to her students, and the laughter she brought into every room she entered. Community members rallied around Emily, providing her with emotional support and a network of people who were grieving alongside her. Neighbors organized a meal train and offered her a place to stay whenever she needed. It was a gesture of solidarity, reflecting the collective loss they felt. Soon, local leaders saw the need for more structured ways to help people process their grief. Religious leaders, social workers, and therapists organized counseling sessions and support groups for residents struggling with the tragedy's emotional impact. The school district set up a hotline for students and parents who needed help processing their emotions, and grief counselors visited classrooms to assist children who were struggling to understand and cope with the loss of a beloved teacher. Community support extended beyond initial gestures. A scholarship fund was established in Linda's name to honor her commitment to education and help aspiring teachers pursue their dreams. Through these efforts, the community honored Linda's legacy, attempting to turn their grief into positive actions that could have lasting impact. As the community's grief slowly began to ease, they took Linda's death as a solemn reminder of the hidden dynamics that can lurk within families and relationships. Her story became a powerful example of how controlling behavior, jealousy, and unaddressed emotional struggles can escalate into violence. Community organizations, inspired by her memory, initiated programs to educate people on recognizing early warning signs of unhealthy relationships and abusive behavior. They focused on creating awareness about signs of control, manipulation, and obsessive behavior that can easily go unnoticed or be rationalized away. The Linda Reynolds Foundation was formed to provide resources, education, and outreach programs aimed at promoting safe, healthy relationships. Partnering with mental health professionals, the foundation began hosting workshops on topics like establishing boundaries, managing jealousy, and communicating effectively. The foundation also offered training sessions on identifying coercive control and emotional abuse. Attendees learned how to recognize warning signs, such as sudden personality changes, controlling behavior, and isolating tactics, fostering a sense of vigilance within the community. To reach young people, the foundation collaborated with local schools to incorporate lessons on emotional health, relationships, and personal safety into their curricula. Teachers received special training to identify at-risk students or those struggling with family issues. These preventive measures extended to organizing public forums, where guest speakers shared personal stories of surviving abusive relationships, discussing red flags, and encouraging others to seek help if they ever felt unsafe. Linda's legacy inspired new conversations about the importance of community responsibility and intervention. The foundation encouraged neighbors, friends, and colleagues to trust their instincts, reach out if they felt someone might be in danger, and break the silence surrounding domestic issues. By emphasizing the power of collective action, the foundation empowered people to support one another, building a community with a heightened sense of compassion and awareness. The tragic events surrounding her mother's death left Emily shattered, but determined to honor Linda's memory in a way that would make a difference. Though initially overwhelmed with grief and betrayal, she gradually found healing in channeling her emotions into purposeful action. After a period of deep mourning, during which she leaned on close friends, relatives, and a therapist, Emily began the difficult journey of piecing her life back together. Over time, she discovered that art and creative expression allowed her to process her pain, express her grief, and ultimately find a sense of purpose. Emily began working on a series of paintings that expressed her complex emotions: confusion, sadness, betrayal, and hope. This collection, which she called Shadows and Light, became a personal project and later a public exhibit. The exhibit was an emotional journey for both Emily and the community, illustrating the deep love she had for her mother and the dark tragedy that had transformed their lives. Through this artwork, she conveyed her experience of loss, survival, and resilience, using her story as a powerful means of connection and inspiration for others. As Shadows and Light gained public attention, Emily realized her voice could have an even greater impact. She began speaking at events hosted by the Linda Reynolds Foundation, sharing her story with others and using her platform to educate and advocate for mental health and family safety. Emily's speeches reached schools, community centers, and conferences, where she encouraged young people to recognize and respect boundaries, trust their instincts, and seek help if they ever felt uncomfortable or controlled in any relationship. Her openness resonated with others who had faced abuse or loss, showing them a path forward even after unimaginable trauma. Through her art and her advocacy, Emily became a figure of resilience and hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Her contributions transformed Linda's tragedy into a source of light, guiding others toward awareness and safety. In her speeches, she emphasized the importance of recognizing one's own worth and the necessity of setting healthy boundaries, sharing lessons she had learned through her experiences. Emily's work with the foundation expanded its outreach, bringing in more resources, therapists, and speakers to support families and individuals in need. By turning her pain into action, she became a role model for others, particularly young people who saw in her an example of strength, honesty, and vulnerability. Her story inspired countless people to prioritize mental health, respect in relationships, and the courage to speak out when they felt something was wrong. Linda's life and legacy lived on in Emily's words, art, and advocacy, transforming personal grief into a community-wide mission for change. Emily's resilience, compassion, and dedication created a living tribute to her mother, ensuring that Linda's memory would not only be preserved, but would actively protect others from similar pain. In time, Emily's journey of healing became a beacon for others, a testament to the possibility of growth and transformation after even the deepest losses. Through her efforts, the community continued to honor Linda's memory, strengthened by the lessons her life and death had imparted. In the final part of this story, we shift the focus to a more reflective and thought-provoking space, one that encourages the viewer to ask difficult yet essential questions about the tragedy and its broader implications. By exploring the reasons behind the heartbreaking events, we start to unravel the complex layers that lead to such unimaginable outcomes. What makes someone capable of such extreme acts? What drives an individual to the point where control, jealousy, and obsession become so overpowering that they are willing to commit irreparable harm? These questions are not easy to answer, but they are crucial in understanding the root causes of violence and how to prevent such events from happening in the future. Was it Mark's own history of unresolved trauma that led to his violent actions? Or were there warning signs that were overlooked or ignored by those around him? What does it say about a person's ability to justify their actions, even when faced with the irreversible consequences of their decisions? Could Mark have ever come to terms with his jealousy and obsession, or was he destined to spiral out of control due to an inability to manage his emotions and impulses? As viewers, we are left to grapple with the complexities of human behavior. It's easy to point fingers or attribute blame, but what drives a person to such extremes often lies in a tangled web of personal history, unmet needs, and unaddressed mental health issues. Could the tragedy have been avoided if Mark had received the help he needed earlier in life, or if Linda had been able to recognize the signs of his escalating behavior? Did society fail to provide the support and understanding that might have prevented his destructive path? We must also question the role that community awareness and intervention play. Could neighbors, friends, or even Linda herself have done more to confront the red flags of Mark's behavior earlier? What happens when people around someone like Mark fail to recognize the signs of unhealthy relationships or choose not to intervene for fear of creating conflict or causing discomfort? Are we, as a society, too often willing to look away from uncomfortable truths, only to regret our inaction when it's too late? But perhaps the most painful question of all is this: how do we prevent future tragedies like this? How can we break the cycles of violence that are often hidden beneath the surface of seemingly normal lives? Can we ever truly understand what drives a person to commit such harm? Or is the answer simply that some people are too broken to heal? And how do we ensure that the memory of those like Linda, whose lives are taken too soon, becomes a catalyst for change rather than a mere tragedy to be mourned and forgotten? These are difficult questions that don't have easy answers. They demand introspection, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths, and an active effort to create a society that values emotional health, support systems, and the well-being of all its members. Linda's tragic death and Emily's journey of resilience should serve as a wake-up call, reminding us of the profound impact we all have on one another. The choices we make, both in how we treat others and how we respond to their struggles, can either contribute to healing or perpetuate cycles of harm. As viewers, we must grapple with these questions, not just as spectators of a tragedy, but as participants in a collective effort to foster empathy, understanding, and proactive change. In doing so, we honor those who have suffered and work toward a future where tragedies like this no longer happen. If you've made it this far, take a moment to reflect on the story we've just shared. It's a tragedy that highlights the darkest sides of obsession, trust, and the destruction of a seemingly perfect life. Before you leave, please don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, and subscribe for more deep dives into real stories and complex human behavior. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Why do you think Mark's obsession escalated the way it did? What are the deeper emotional, psychological, or societal factors that might have contributed to his actions? Could this tragedy have been prevented? Do you think we, as a community, could do more to identify the warning signs of unhealthy relationships and intervene before it's too late? These are tough questions, but they're important. Share your thoughts, engage with others, and let's start a conversation about how we can help avoid situations like this in the future. After all, it's only by discussing these topics openly that we can understand the complexities of human behavior and take steps toward preventing future tragedies. Thank you for watching. Let's keep the conversation going.